The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
On this edition's Perspectives, the City Council passed legislation calling on the federal government to add language that directly negates the 3/5 clause by stating that African Americans are 100% whole individuals and declared March 5th as 3/5 Clause Awareness Day in New York City. Coming up, Councilman Andy King joins us next, giving us an update on this, as well as how will the young black vote shape the presidential election in November. That plus much, much more on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone. I'm Daren Jaime. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. The 3/5 Clause, Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution of 1787, was demanded by Southern supporters of slavery as a way of increasing their congressional representation as well as their political power. They wanted slaves to be counted as full persons, but settled on 3/5. Councilmember Andy King introduced legislation in 2016 calling on the federal government to add an amendment to add language that directly negates the 3/5 clause. The New York City Council unanimously passed legislation for the official observance of 3/5 Clause Awareness Day in New York City. And here now bringing us all the updates and details is the council member representing the 12th District of the Bronx, Andy King. Also joining us today is Brian Melford. He's a community activist and the former president of the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program. He also has registered scores of young people to vote at several community-wide city events and currently serves as budget director. Good to have you both here on the show. Good to have you back.
Yeah, good to be here. God bless you. Good and plenty 2020.
Yes, good and plenty 2020. Let's get right at it. Listen,
Yes.
so when we talk about March, it's right around the corner, right? But yet and still, the work about 3/5, we've got an Awareness Day. But where are we now in terms of getting that to Washington?
Well, getting it to Washington consists of a real national-wide campaign. I've spoken to a number of Congress members. I've spoken to the Congressional Black Caucus about how they can be more actively engaged in enlightening their constituents of this conversation. So it's going to take on an organizing campaign in state to state to state, and I've asked elected officials throughout the union to do what they can to bring this awareness. Because the first thing people have to do is understand that this does exist. Because one of the things I've learned in government that we put Band-Aids on so many issues, thinking that we're correcting a sickness. And excuse my language, I say what we've done, and when we try to put policies together, a lot of times it's like, you know, if you take STDs or venereal disease and you give it Tylenol, you never solve it, never end it. It needs a good shot of penicillin. In order to get rid of some of the prejudice, the injustices that happen to communities of color, you have to really put language in and actually do something to get rid of the 3/5 clause. The mismanagement of and oppression in the United States of America stems from this mother doctrine, the United States Constitution, where they said blacks were not equal as their whiter counterparts. Even though we were out building, we were the ones who were making things happen, we were taking care of families, taking care of their families, but they did not treat us with the same equal respect. So in order for us to understand why our education systems are flawed, our healthcare systems have challenges, the food that we eat are crazy, why there's so much drugs and alcohol that runs rampant in our communities, but even more than that, our young children not getting empowered when they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, of how great they, of families that they come from. You know, the lineage of the bloodlines of who they are. You know, today they're always fed how bad they are, how ugly, you know, being a black child is. Even today, when you watch television, I ask everyone, take a good look at television and the cameras, the commercials that are shown. There's a concerted effort to eliminate the black family. You'll see either the white male And the black woman, and with a child, you can't tell whether they're black or white, or sometimes you might slightly see a black male and a white woman, but you don't see the strength of a black man and a black woman in these commercials today. Take a good look at that.
Let me talk to you, Brian, for a second. When did you first become aware of the 3/5 clause and what that meant?
So thanks to Councilmember King, the work that we've been doing with the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program, we knew about it. We watched Eyes on the Prize. We watched a number of documentaries that educated us as young students of color as to what it was to be black in America in 2015, 2016, 2017. But we had to take it that step further. How can we continue to educate those youth that otherwise don't know this information? Because it's good for us, the choir, to learn the information, but we have to bring it out of the classroom, out of the schools, and bring it to the community centers, to the youth centers, to the churches. A lot of the churches, for as long as they've been there, sometimes they don't have the knowledge. So Councilmember made it a concerted effort to not only give it to the adults in the room, but to pass it on to the young people, because they're really the ones that are going to keep the work and the journey going. So Councilmember educated us, and once you learn something, you can't keep it unless you give it away. So we actually did the job of getting more young people involved, getting younger young people involved. If you learn a little bit earlier, you're going to be better off in the long run.
Right. So those young people, what's the response when they hear this?
For them, they really feel like it's outdated. It's an antiquated law that still affects us today. And as Councilmember drew the comparison, just because it's something that was written in the 1700s doesn't mean it has an impact on us today. Everything that's in the Constitution impacts the economy of today, the politics of today, and the social interactions of people of color and people of not color today. We have to take that into consideration and then come up with a strategic plan on how to first educate the populace, the masses, and then actually force our congressional representatives to do the right thing and bring it to the floor and add that language to the Constitution.
So as far as congressional representatives, I know you've had conversations. I know you talked about it before. And I know also there's been some pushback too, right?
Well, the pushback is not really so much pushback from people of color other than them not understanding it. You know, when people can't understand it, they can't figure out how to embrace it. And then as we've given examples to some of my colleagues, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. You know, I didn't know that exists. And one thing I will say, when you go through the story of black America and history and slavery, understanding that, you know, between the house Negro and the field Negro, yeah, there was this animosity amongst one another once you got into the house, how you couldn't, you know, still be existing and be cool with the field Negro. Well, today, those attitudes still exist. You know, Jim Crow laws are still in effect. The psychological impact slavery has had on the black American. And when I say black in America, I want people to really understand it doesn't matter if you're from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, anywhere from South America to the Caribbean to the North America. According to the rules of the United States, they made a clear separation between the European white and everybody else. So if you don't fall into the category of being European white, you're black in America. And one of the things they've done a massive job is conquer us by dividing us. So some nationalities, whether they're coming from Ecuador, they land here and they haven't figured out how to assimilate or communicate with the black America, so-called black America that's here. The Dominicans, you know, I love them. I have people who look just as darker than me. They speak Spanish, but they will, on an application, they will say they're white because before they got this country, they've told them, you're not this, because if your people of color were to come together, one of the greatest things, and I'm jumping on this, one of the things that David Duke said back about 25, 30 years ago, is you know, the president of Ku Klux Klan, he said, if the black man actually knew who it was, we'd all be in trouble, because they know what they've done to black America. So when you talk about black history, I ask everyone to understand what it is to be black in America, who you are in the essence of American history, who you are in the essence of the history of this world. And once we do that, we can come up with real strategies for fairness to fight all the injustices and the prejudices that we go through each and every day.
Continue our conversation with Bronx Councilmember Andy King as well as Brian Melford when we return right here on Perspectives. We'll be right back right after this.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You a good girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork of our paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years, and I got my 3rd child, who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
And we're back here on Perspectives. Bronx Councilmember Andy King and also Brian Melford, Budget Director and also community activist. And we talk about activism. One of the things that's important during this season is the get out to vote push. And I know a lot of people have been talking about getting out to vote. Democrats are really working their way to find out who their candidate is going to be. And then also, you know, we got the presidential election around the corner. But speak to us about voting in your area. Are you happy with the numbers that you're seeing?
Well, in my district, we've been the #1 voting district in the borough of the Bronx the last 5 elections. So my district participate. I've encouraged to, when I got elected, to how we need to continue be engaged in all process, you know, whether it's going to a CEC meeting or going to a precinct meeting or going to your community meeting, your town hall meeting, a meeting to the meeting. Just participate, because I always say people pay attention to people who participate. People pay attention to communities who participate. So voting is so critical because we know the history of so many people dying for that right. And that's, you know, when we have this voting session that's going to happen in the city of New York coming up in 2021, I ask everyone, do all you can to be smart and learn about the people that you vote for. Even in this presidential election, be educated about who the person that you're voting for. I know some people are concerned that we have a businessman that's in the race right now running for president. You know, if you appreciate his views, if you like his views, then you know what, if you feel he's a better candidate than the Republican candidate, the current president, then so be it. If you think there's another elected official that's running for the race, one of the challenges that I do have when I have these decisions about who we identify as our next president is that the senators, or if you've been in Washington for 20 years, you can't all of a sudden come run for president and complain about Washington. Your job in Washington was to try to correct the things. So what makes you better now as a president when if you haven't clearly done the things that should have been done when you have a job in Washington? So I'm a little leery about that. So I just ask people to be as educated as you can, but more importantly, come out and participate so you gain strength. You know, and we know for census conversations that come up, we ask people to not hide underneath the radar. But more importantly, you know, New York might lose a congressional seat depending on the numbers right now. But at the end of the day, you know, you still got to hold the people whoever you got in office accountable for the work they do and they don't do.
Yeah, I want to come back to you, Brian, about this. I'll talk about the census in a minute, but let me get to you talking about a young person, right? Millennials. Given the fact that you've got the current president, do you find that millennials will be going to the polls more, or what's the conversation piece between millennials this day with the Trump in office? in a lot in the balance? Are they actively engaged, or some people just sit by on the sidelines? How do you see it from your perspective?
Unfortunately, from what I've observed, it's a fine line. Some people are supportive of voting, and then some people just aren't. Some people don't feel included in the process. They don't feel like their voices are being heard, and they're also not happy with who's in office now. Unfortunately, we have to do a better job of educating young people that their vote does count. And if they don't like what's in the White House now, they got to do a better job of voting the person in and that will replace them. In this world, if you don't participate, if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. So if you don't like something that's going on, as Councilman said, you got to participate. You can't complain and then expect something to change magically. If you don't go out there and organize the bodies to vote, if you don't pick the candidate, if you don't nominate the candidate, you can't be mad when somebody wins and they don't represent you. So young people got to be in it.
In the intro, we said you've registered scores of people to vote, right? So what is your selling point, if you will, to tell people, listen, you know what, get here?
For them, we have a seat at the table with Councilmember King. So it's a different dynamic locally than having the presidential conversation, because young people can go into Councilmember King's office and interview him, ask him what he's doing for their schools. Council members fix schools. He's fixed playgrounds. He's fixed centers that directly impact the lives of young people. But if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, you, on average, for the most part, in other communities, may not feel as well represented or included in the process. When it comes to registering people to vote in the Northeast Bronx, we have an elected leader that's representative of us and is accessible. I can't say that at the federal level that the president's accessible to that demographic. And I also can't say that students and young people of color that want to vote, that want to get involved, feel like a lot of the folks in the room are giving them that platform to get involved or welcoming them with open arms to pass them the torch so that they want to come and be involved in the process. And that's the real thing that we got to change.
The federal level is the word that we're talking about, right? Of course, getting people to be engaged at the federal level. But we find, I mean, that's traditionally the numbers, right? We see more people come out for a presidential election than they do any other election. So, any projections as to what you think you'll see? Will this be a year of low voter turnout if we're dissatisfied with if Bloomberg becomes the candidate, as many people possibly fear, and it's Bloomberg versus Trump? Some people say, well, there may be a lot of sit-at-home people.
Well, you might have a lot of sit-home people. Bloomberg, some of the ads that I've read on Bloomberg, and I've had the experience of working in the council when he was the mayor for one of the years that I was there. I say that when he was a mayor, some of the things that he did to the black community, sort of stop and frisk, definitely was something that hurt our neighborhood, but you can't blame that all just on one person. Then I have to look at the rest of his resume. How did he improve the economic conditions? Was the city safer? Did things get cleaner? Did things get better? When Mayor Bill de Blasio walked in the door, he walked in the door with a pretty good purse to deliver on some services. Well, that was through the leadership of, at that time, Mayor Michael Bloomberg. So again, people got to be more educated on what makes sense. And if you feel that you have somebody that you can communicate and that their message resonates with you, but also look at their track record. Again, one of the things that hurts the elected process when you get politicians running for seats, because you got to decipher who's telling you the right story, whose message you can go with, or who's BSing you, just because they want to win. But when you find out someone who's really has done some work and has a proven track record, then you got to make a conscious, real decision on. But more importantly, show up. Show up, because as Brian said, the biggest impact on your life is what happens locally. What's happening in Washington a lot of times doesn't even resonate what's happening in Edenwald or Bed-Stuy or, or Park Slope, but what happens in the city of New York, your city council, your public advocate, your controller, your mayor, those have impacts on your community where you live each and every day. So I'd say to young people, start locally. Don't just show up to the presidential race, because there's rules that have been in place. If you haven't voted in such a long time, you roll in, your name gets kicked off the roll anyway. So you got to vote every elected season so you can empower yourself. And then you keep yourself more informed when those big elections come around. You're not just going, oh, I'm a Democrat, just do Democrat down the line, and you could be voting for the worst person on the planet. Right. But just because you're a Democrat, you just, you have that blind commitment.
Voting with your conscience. Listen, got a couple of seconds left. Taking a quick break. We'll be right back right after this.
Bring it. Time out, guys. I'm late to dinner. My mom's gonna kill me. Catch you guys later.
Mom wants us home. Okay. Bye, guys.
You guys need a ride?
Sure. Yeah. All right. How about some one-on-one? I gotta go eat, man. Sorry. I'll see you later.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking, now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
And we're back. So, Councilman, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the year. 2020 is here, right? So what's going on in your district?
Well, on March 5th, 3/5 Close Awareness Day is happening. It's going to be at the Mosque number 7 in Harlem. I invite everyone to join us at 7 p.m. to come down for that dynamic conversation that's going to happen, along with some activists, ministers, as well as elected leaders and congressional professors to talk about the 3/5 Clause and our next steps to energize all of America, not just Black America, but all of America, of how this piece of language in the Constitution still has an impact on our everyday lives. Then the following week, on March 12th, I'll be having the state of our district at Public School 41. I invite everyone to be a part of that conversation. It's going to be dynamic and a whole lot of fun. And I'm celebrating Women's History Month, so we're celebrating some people who do everyday work, our women who do everyday work to make our community strong. And I also turned 33 that day, so we'll be doing our little dance and having a wonderful time. But I'm excited about what the future is going to bring for the 12th District. I'm committed to doing all the work that I've been doing and some in the neighborhood that educated and raised me. So ask everybody to stay tuned as we do more stuff. And on April 30th, I end with this, the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program will be hosting its 15th Youth Speaks Forum at PS 76. So get excited about that. But there's a whole lot we got to get done. Again, I ask everyone, just learn your history, know your story, and remember, no one can tell your story like you can tell your story.
Brian, for you, obviously you got some work going on for the rest of this year as well, and how you tackling youth and other things.
So for the rest of Black History, we're going to be watching a number of documentaries trying to get the young people more engaged, more aware of what their history is, and that Black history is American history, giving them that knowledge so they can be the champions of tomorrow. And as Councilmember said, April 30th, Youth Speaks. Young people are going to be standing on stage and making their parents, their ancestors, their community proud. We're going to have a dynamic panel, and the young people are actually going to carry the entire forum. So it's going to be another opportunity for our young champions, our young scholars to actually showcase what God's blessed them with so they can show people, hey, we got a voice too, because youth speaks.
Speaking about voice, you've been around for years. How many years have you been with this guy?
I'm going to say 15.
15, right?
15.
Do you feel like you found your voice yet?
I would argue that I never not had a voice, but the council member has given me an opportunity to amplify that voice that the Lord blessed me with.
All right, Brian Melford, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Andy King.
Honor and
Good to
pleasure.
have you, brother.
Same here.
All right, listen, that about wraps it up for this edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime saying take care. God bless. Until next time we meet, share your perspective with somebody else. You never know, it just might make a difference in somebody else's life. Peace and blessings.
Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light, because it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let them know. Anything relevant.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
From the north to the south to the west to the east, we are expanding our services and upgrading technology at Lehman College. And now, Bronxites have an innovative media production facility in the East Bronx at Mercy College in the Hutch Metro Center. The windows on the East Bronx studio, a state-of-the-art control room, media labs for production and training, and other media-capable spaces. Training, workforce development, leading-edge technology, and programs that help you share your ideas, your voice, on your channels, locally and globally. Build media and technology skills at BronxNet and build your dreams. We are together. And for the last 20 years, we have been building on a vision to share our views, our voices on our channels. We are the Bronx. We are BronxNet.